Live from the backstretch at historic Saratoga Race Course, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow. Racing Across America is brought to you by Pinnell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, Saratoga, just minutes from the track. And the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. When you can't make it to the track, make it to the Clubhouse Racebook.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America live from Clare Court, our Saratoga location on Acorn Day. Great stakes action today here at Saratoga. And at this point, it looks like a nice day. We're a little overcast, but comfortable temperatures, and they're still listed fast and firm. So we're looking forward to a really good Friday coming up. And, of course, tomorrow, great day with the Belmont. We're looking for the rematch, Sovereignty and Journalism. Baeza is right in the mix as well. Should be a lot of fun. Great stakes action. Tomorrow, we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. A little bit later on, again, I did the radio with Steve Byk yesterday, and so I had him sit down and handicap a couple of races for today, and the Belmont and another race for tomorrow. We'll show that tomorrow, but today's races, we'll pull up that. And it's just 3 or 4 minutes of some handicapping. We'll pull that tape up towards the end of the show. And again, we're abbreviated today. We'll be done by 10 o'clock. Because there's an 11:40 post today, so the NYRA pregame show should start at about 10 o'clock, so we'll get off before that. But in the meantime, live on the set, joined by our friend Tommy Bellhouse from West Point Thoroughbreds. Saw Tommy in the paddock yesterday. He's got a couple of nice runners, West Point does, in the Manhattan tomorrow, grade 1 action. So I thought we'd have to go over, talk a little bit about that and more. Good morning.
Good morning. I love that you channel your inner Brent Musburger. You're looking live at Clare Court. I mean, that's like, bring me back, right?
I like that. When I was coming in this morning, I made a note that I wanted to ask you. I'm sure, because I ask almost everybody at some point, and I'm not sure I've asked you. If I have, I don't remember. But how did you become involved in the game? How did you become a fan and then move into the ownership side of things?
So as a young boy, I loved to ride horses.
Oh, okay.
I mean, really young. I mean, maybe like 8 or 9 years old. There was a little thing through the police athletic league where you could go and ride a horse, and I loved it. And my next door neighbor loved harness racing, and he kind of introduced me like in 1974 into like harness racing. And back then, Stan Bergstein and Dave Johnson used to do the late night, Saturday night, 11:30 at night. Yeah. So I would stay up and watch it, much to my parents' chagrin. And my grandmother, believe it or not, lives like 3 miles. The family homestead was like 3 miles from Belmont Park. So my Uncle Pete lived in Elmont, and he took me to Belmont for the first time, and it was over. I mean, because as a kid who loved horses, I saw Forgo, and he was the biggest horse I'd ever seen in my life. And right about then it was the Aladar and Affirmed, and I was just young enough where I don't really remember Secretariat other than maybe his last race at Woodbine. But I think if you got introduced to horse racing, Aladar Firm, Spectacular Bid, Seattle Slew, right in that 3 or 4 year period. I mean, I was hooked, and I've spent most of the rest of my life trying to find something I enjoy as much. And I just loved everything about the game. And I moved upstate to Oswego, went to college. I opened a small bar restaurant up there and lived a number of lives corporate-wise. But I was always drawn back to the Belmont Stakes to visit my grandmother and spend the week down there. And in 2003, I bought in on a horse with West Point Thoroughbreds. Terry and I had been friends, and I just loved it. And 2008, I joined the company. It's been a magical ride ever since.
And I know it was 2 or 3 years ago, you guys had a milestone win up here. I mean, it's just been a crazy ride for West Point over the years.
You know what's crazy? It was our 1,000th win. And, you know, it was just, when you think about 1,000 wins,
absolutely.
Especially when we started out and we had maybe 25, 30 horses and not very good, some of them. And Awesome Gem and Macho again kind of put us on the map with Flashy Bull, Seattle Fitz, horses like that. But we're over 1,200 already. So the fact that first 1,000 seem to take forever, and
yeah.
that's a nice feeling. And obviously, the stable has grown to in excess of 130, 140 horses, 700 partners, whereas when I started, maybe 150.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful. We're very, very proud of what Terry and Debbie have built, and we have a team for the most part that's been intact a long time. So that's also something we're really proud of.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the guys now, and some of the newer guys, Jason Blewett,
Sure.
fairly recently, Joe Bianca, fairly recently.
We migrate to those TV guys, the personalities.
There you go. And it's funny listening to you getting into the game because I was right in the same era. Forgo is still my favorite horse, and really pulled me into the race where he gave away 30 pounds. And
we were just talking about that yesterday. I think it was the Marlboro Cup.
Yeah.
And the 2-3-year-olds, and back then handicaps were handicaps.
Yeah.
Where I think it was Dan Spell or Honest Pleasure. He was spotting him 25 pounds, and he's coming flying on the outside with Willie Shoemaker, and like you'll never get there, right? And then he gets up at the wire.
Yeah, and the thing is that because of the change in the you'll never see that again. A 30-pound spread, it's just incredible.
Well, we talk about the Met Miles coming up tomorrow, and the Met Mile used to be a signature race on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
But it wasn't unusual to put in a 3-year-old in that race and get in at 108, 110, where the top horses would have 130. Yeah. I remember Mr. Fantasy, one of our horses, was going to run in it. He ended up scratching, but he was entered, and we got in like 20 pounds, 25 pounds, and he was a speedball. If he, the mile might have been the edge of his as far as he wanted to go. But
if I'm not mistaken, I think Woody used the Met Mile a couple of times to prep for the Belmont. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just it's showing.
Well, the famed Conquistador Cielo. Won the Met Mile, won right. Just the way the calendar fell.
Yeah. Incredible. All right, let's talk a little bit about coming up tomorrow, because you have a couple of fun and live horses in the Manhattan Grade 1 event, and you always like to be playing at that level of the game. And I pulled up a couple of replays, but we'll talk Carson's run in a moment. But Integration, going out for West Point and Company, trained by Shug. I pulled up a replay going back to the Red Smith. This is a nice victory last November for Integration. I pulled this up. One reason, nice win, certainly. I can't complain about that. But also, it was the last time Flavian Pratt was on board.
Yeah, look at him right here on the screen. I mean, it didn't look like he was going to explode at this point. And then Flavian just moved him out, and I was at this race. And turning for home, I was like, I wasn't sure that he had the same explosiveness. And then Flavian just angled him out. And obviously, I think we just nosed out, another Shug horse, too, in there. Listen, this horse has an immense amount of talent. He's a son of the offspring of Harmonize. I don't know if you remember that horse with Bill Mott. Beautiful filly, was a stakes filly.
Daddy, yeah.
So we have him. He's always had high expectations, and he's lived up to them. We were a little unlucky not to win the Pegasus. Spirit of St. Louis just come down out of nowhere and got us. And in a way, he deserves a Grade 1. He's that good. And we've had some tough trips, and you can't make excuses all the time, but we got Flavian Pratt. I think, listen, he doesn't love cutting the ground. It might rain more tomorrow, but we're in a $1.5 million race with Flavian Pratt riding a horse that should be a Grade 1 winner. I mean, it's time to put our chips, up. Yeah, and I think maybe he might be an Arlington Million horse again this year. We went down there last year, and we lost, I believe, to Nation's Pride.
Yeah, you had won the Million preview.
Right, exactly. And we won the Virginia Derby there, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah.
So he likes it down there. But to win in the Manhattan, I know Shug has won the Manhattan, and we'd love to win it again. And I think we're going in with a good hand.
Yeah, he's been nice, certainly. Purchased right up here, August of 2021, right down the street. You guys do very well down there. It's always fun to see you guys. And then working the phones afterwards out in the backyard and pulling partners in immediately after.
Well, that's a whole dynamic in itself. And Terry's a master at it. I mean, to play on some of these horses that are a little more expensive, that would be out of our comfort range, because we don't really raise capital in advance. We go to the sale, and then we put together these deals. And that deal in particular comes together, and then Terry handles, let's say, the bigger players, and then the rest of us get working with our partners that like want to be a part of a horse like this.
And you want to be a part of a horse. 1.4 million in earnings so far for integration. So he's in, and then Carson's Run. Tom, you know what race I pulled up for the replay? Don't you?
It's all rainbows, my friend.
going back to last summer in the Saratoga Derby, Grade 1 event and Carson's Run, and it was emotional in the winner's circle. Certainly, this was a huge victory. Dylan Davis's first Grade 1 in the United States. Right. That added to it. Steve Boucher and his story behind that as well. It was, like I say, it was a winner's circle. It was fun to be in and very emotional. But this was a nice victory. So Carson's Run has run very well up here at Saratoga already.
You know, you've heard me say it a million times. This is the horse you dream about. You go to a 2-year-old in training sale, and when we go to the 2-year-old in training sales, we're looking for athletes. You know, we understand that you're probably not going to get stallion pedigrees at 2-year-old sales in the price range that we're looking to spend. I mean, you'll have a Chestertown or a Sandman as an outlier that are in those sales in a different way. But, you know, we're buying a $170,000 Cupid, son of Cupid, out of a Henny Hughes mare. I mean, some of our favorites, but and we bought them from a guy named Randy Miles, who we've had great success. We had 7 trumpets with Randy.
Okay.
So we, you know, a guy we have great success buying from. And this horse is just like, he's done everything we've asked. He's basically been Saratoga based. So he's been here. The partners, we have a lot of Saratoga partners on it who go over and see him. And to break your maiden first time out at Saratoga, I think we lost by a zop in the, is it with anticipation or was one of those, right?
With anticipation.
Then you and I go to Canada because that's what we do.
Yeah, you guys are big on both of those Grade 1s that win in your
right.
The Breeders'
exactly. Cup. And so we went to the summer stake and we did win, and that's a win in your in, as you said. Got a little roughed up in that. Those Del Mar turns are a little rough for him. But, you know, coming back this year, the Belmont the Jockey Club Invitational, whatever the name was, that was another great win. Yep. So he's done everything we could have ever asked. And to win that Saratoga Derby last summer, especially with all the outside factors, he's back. He ran a really credible return race against Deterministic. And tomorrow we get to find out, is this his level? Is he a true older horse, Grade 1? And, you know, he'll probably get more than one shot, but this is going to be a great litmus test for him. I would never, ever bet against this horse. And Dylan really has, you know, a relationship with him. And it's, you know, Dylan's won a lot of big races now. Yeah. But a year ago, you know, he'd won in Canada, and he won in Canada with us. But then that race, and now to watch his career just
last year at Saratoga was really kind of the coming out party. I think. Yeah,
absolutely.
The prices he was bringing in and the number of wins. It was fun to watch last year, no question about it. But $1.6 million in the bank for Carson's Run, and again that nice Grade 1, which I said was emotional last year. This one would be emotional too, with Miguel Clement now training. It would be the first Grade 1 for him. And I'll ask you, I've asked a couple of the guests so far this week. You know, you guys obviously have had horses with Christophe Clement. Boy, that was sad news a couple of weeks ago. He was such a New York fixture. I had interviewed him, had a couple of interviews in the winner's circle with him. I tried to get him back here and never, and it wasn't anything. He just had other things scheduled. But to see the outpouring on social media was just amazing. And, you know, you, as I say, had horses with him. What are your memories of Christophe Clement?
Well, Christophe, so we've been doing business with the Team Clement for about 10 years now. It started with a filly named Best Performance, who was second in the Breeders' Cup. That was the first horse that we really had with West Point. And that relationship of being around him and his team and the attention to detail of how they do things. I said, I believe with Steve Byk, it was like there was just a kinship with the animal of when to move forward, when to not. And there's a lot of great horsemen on the track. But Christophe, when you were around him as a person, he took the time to ask questions and really wanted to hear the answer. which not a lot of people in our world do. A lot of it can be a little superficial and like, oh, hey, how you doing? Type deal. But he really wanted to know about your life and what went on. And over the years, as you know, in our structure of West Point, as we've grown, individuals are assigned to trainers. Like Jason Blewett is assigned to Shug. They have a great relationship. Well, Christoph, myself, and Miguel, because Miguel had interned for us back in the day. Christoph L'Oreal down at Belmont, who's been his assistant 30 years. You know, the loss is really great. And not just as a horse trainer, but as a really wonderful human being and somebody that I'm going to miss terribly.
Yeah, I think, as I say, the outpouring on social media just emphasizes that. It was really incredible. It's just very sad, you know, relatively young guy. It was sad news, but it was nice to see Miguel get the win the other day.
And yesterday.
And yesterday followed it up nicely. And so we'll see what happens with the grade 1 tomorrow.
Well, he's got 3 shots.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, no question about it. All right, Tom, when I asked you to come, I said certainly we wanted to talk about the weekend and those two, but let's get an update on Sandman. Sandman, what else am I going to pull up? Then the Arkansas Derby, where you and Jason and I were a few hundred miles away, but I enjoyed the victory in the Arkansas Derby with you guys watching on the big screen. Florida Derby weekend down there. Terry was at Oaklawn and some of the other West Point partners, but just reflect back on this nice victory by Sandman in the Arkansas Derby.
Well, I just like watching it. You know, it was the perfect storm. Everything came together. He's a horse that, you know, he broke his maiden up here last summer for Mark. And watching how Mark's operation, especially with this horse over the last going on a year now, is fascinating. You know, he'll take horses from the sale or years and they go forward until they tell him no. And it's a really unique perspective on, and I think it's why you see him with so many horses in the Breeders' Cup as juveniles, because you know, he starts this program. And Sandman was barred at OBS March and basically went right into the program at Mark's farm down there. So made the races by June, broke his maiden in Saratoga, went out to Churchill. He's a tappet. He's a great tappet.
Yeah.
They're can be extremely green and unpredictable. You think of a lot of the great tappets over the years that, you know, it's just the way they are. Tappett's been very good to us with Ring Weekend and that other horse, Flightline. You know, so to watch his development, and then you know, not often do you see anymore a horse running all 3 of the preps at a single spot. You know, they're usually going to skip one. And he ran in all 3 and culminated with the grade 1 victory in the Arkansas Derby. Did we go to the Kentucky Derby? A little bit of a rough trip, but no excuses. You know, we were there and, you know, we were behind Sovereignty. We were following Sovereignty, and we got just spun a little wide, which happens. Mark made the last minute decision it was the Saturday in between. We're all sleeping. We get the 911. So we're going to the Preakness and scramble. But it was, you know, he felt the horse was doing well enough to take another shot. And Johnny V, you know, you don't say this a lot about a 3rd place ride. If you get a chance, go back and watch one of the greatest rides you'll ever see. He's coming around the turn. He heads inside to save ground. And just as he sees the stuff in front of him, angles out right off the crest of the turn so he doesn't lose any ground. And for that split second, I'm like, oh, my God, we're going to win the Preakness. And then Sandman does what Sandman sometimes do. Start looking around. And now, the winner of the Preakness almost fell down and still beat us by 3 lengths. So let's not take anything away from him. And, you know, Mark's decision, basically, to skip the Belmont, freshen up, and come back for the Jim Dandy Travers. And you know, if you're going to run in those big races in the fall, like we hope, whether it's the Pennsylvania Derby, whether it's the Breeders' Cup or Jockey Club or whatever it is, at some point, if you've had a horse in training since Saratoga last summer, you got to give him a little blow. And I think that's where he's at. He's up here. He's right on the turn. I'm sure if you get on social media, he's basically got his own following, and he's amazing. So very exciting horse. I think the best we haven't begin to see. It reminds me a little of, remember Sierra Leone last year?
Yeah.
You know, kind of yes, but no. Yeah, and then boom, put it together at the end. And that in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, could he be a little like Sierra Leone?
Because it's there. You know that talent is there, and he's flashed it a few times, but then put it all together, and that's interesting. But yeah, so game plan is Jim Dandy next for him, and he's up here, so we'll look for that. And when you sat down, I said I had pulled up. Oh, before we do, I pulled it up from your website, and for folks who may be interested in learning a little more about West Point Thoroughbreds, I think we have a graphic with the website address up here. But I say it whenever you guys are here. Your website is really good, just for fans, because not only do you have, the list of the entries coming up when entries are out, but you know what stakes are coming up where entries haven't been pulled yet, 2 or 3 weeks down the road. So you can look forward to that. And some of those horses in the future, Cagino, Vava, Northern Invader going into Kelso when we come back up here at Saratoga for July 4th weekend. So talk a little bit about what you might have coming up with some of these.
Well, I mean, Northern Invader just won the other day in a kind of a scratch down field, but he'll be coming up here. Cherie's going to be coming up with a large string. She's going to move to the Oklahoma track, I've been told. So over by where the Lucas barn is in the back there. So she's going to set up shop here, if not this week, next week, and get everything set up for a summer campaign. Cagino's a horse that, with Shug McGahee, most of our viewers might remember, he was a real up-and-comer for us, stakes winner, got a little sick on us. He's coming back, and Shug has been just raving about how he's doing. And now he was in the class. Him and Carson were kind of our 3-year-old. We kind of kept him separate as much as we could. And he's just been a horse that is I'd say he's a fan favorite as far as our stable goes, because that whole family's been very good to us. We have Battle of Normandy, his older brother, and then we have Cagino. So that family's been very good to us. And I know our partners are real excited to get Cagino coming back. And Vava's going to run, make her return at Churchill. We're at a crossroads with her. She's a grade 1 winner. She has a ton of value. Cherie, probably her favorite horse. I don't know if she would say it, but you look at a horse like this, she come back. She didn't have the greatest race up here last summer in the test. Was it test? No, it was the ballerina. Ballerina. And then the Breeders' Cup didn't really go our way either. So we're at a spot now where she's at her favorite track. She's got one off the bench. Hopefully she gives us the signals that she wants to go on and continue the rest of the year and towards the Breeders' Cup. If not, she doesn't owe us anything. We would just prep her and she'll probably sell in the fall.
Okay. So there we go with some of the races coming up. And again, you can check that website. And as I say, you look at not only the horses that are confirmed entered, but going out a few weeks, looking at races down the road. You can get an idea on some of the West Point horses. And as I say, it's great for not just fans, but obviously for your partners as well, because they can get an idea of where they're going to get clued in. And I always say it's fun to watch you guys. It used to be the big screen. The screen's a little smaller, but there's still the bottom floor. They did the revamp last year. There's still plenty of people watching races there, and it's always fun to watch the West Point crew in a big race. And so I'm assuming on Saturday there'll be plenty of folks lined up for the Manhattan.
Yeah, I think when you look back at last summer, when people say, what were some of the highlights? You look at that Carson's run and don't look back at all. I think that might have raised to use a Durkinism, that might have raised the rafters that day. You would have thought, we won the Breeders' Cup the way that crowd went. And that's what it's all about. Yeah. I mean, if you don't get those butterflies for these big races, I mean, I get butterflies for every race. And if I didn't, I'd find something else to do because it's just hard.
Yeah.
But, to have our partners up here in Saratoga, especially, we're extended out to a couple months now. And the number of partners that'll come through town, their family, their friends, and come to the races. And, I couldn't be prouder of especially here in Saratoga, what our community's done and supporting the Belmont on Broadway and all the draw we went to. The community involvement's been great. And, as someone who lives here year round, this is the pinnacle for us, to start our summer up here and watch what we're able to, and even all the improvements you see at the track. I mean, it's so different than it was 20 years ago when we come up here.
It's become a 21st century facility, but it maintains the historical charm, which I think
perfectly
put a nice job with that. Tom, got to let you go because we're going to have to wrap up in a couple of minutes, but really appreciated the visit. We wish you a lot of good luck on the weekend and going forward. And we'll certainly talk again and have you come back and sit for the traditional meet. But it was great to talk to you, Belmont Stakes weekend, and good luck.
Thanks, my man.
All right. We'll ship it to, as I said earlier, we got a couple of minutes with Steve Byk. He's going to take a look at the Acorn. And I think the Just a Game was the other race he looked at. So we'll do that. I'll come back and wrap it up quickly. Stay tuned. This action highlights the Acorn for the 3-year-old fillies. Obviously, the top 3-year-old filly this year, Good Cheer. You get past that one in the Acorn?
No, it's very difficult to conceive she's going to get pace to run at. And, I've tried to beat her all spring, essentially all winter. I think you really got to respect what Brad Cox has done with her. And it is amazing that she is running up this record, 7 for 7. And yet she's completely overshadowed going into the weekend. The Triple Crown season and the excitement over sovereignty and journalism in Baeza has just completely, here's the horse 1-2 in one of the great races every year on this weekend, and nobody's even talking about her. But yeah, I think she's very tough. I will say Shred the Gnar was so impressive on Oaks Day. On the undercard, Brian Lynch comes into the weekend. I'm going to pick a couple of, or at least use a couple of his horses. Shred the Gnar in here in the Acorn, and then Big Trues in the Woody Stevens, which we'll talk about in a minute. Bless the Broken is a horse that we utilized very effectively in the Oaks with a reverse tri key, 17-1, almost 18-1 third behind Good Cheer and Drexel Hill, and caught that triple nicely. That really made Oaks Day. I think those two, the 4-5, with Good Cheer, but I don't think you're beating her on Friday.
All right, so had to go with the highlight of the day, but it's kind of obvious. See if we can get something kind of clever. I'm going a little clever in the Just a Game on the turf. I thought dynamic pricing is kind of the other Chad was very playable.
No doubt.
Here. How'd you see the Just a Game?
No, I agree. Dynamic pricing and also Special Juan, the Team Valor horse for Brendan Walsh. That's the 2. They're both they're gonna have different trips. Special Juan will probably be a little closer, right behind the speed. But dynamic pricing can get a very nice trip behind Dylan Davis. There's a number of fun considerations in here. Keogh Beach for Wesley Ward, but she's going to be a part of the pace action. Choice for Simon Crisford apparently is going to spend the summer at Saratoga. Sacred Wish, had she drawn better, I would have been real interested in her at 12-1. She rarely runs a bad race. She'll be coming. And then we had a conversation today, this Lilac Rolla for Bill Mott, first time North America. This is one of these John Stewart Resolute purchases. She's 6-1. She gets junior. She kept really good company here. She's making a debut as a 4-year-old. She may get lost in the wagering, and I would not be surprised if she runs well. So there's a number of price options in this race. I agree with you. Dynamic pricing for Chad and for Seth Klarman from down inside. But I want the 2 on my ticket, Special Juan as well. Rosario taking over for Luis Saez and Brendan Walsh.
Again, thanks to Steve Byk for giving us a couple ideas for today. He'll be back on tomorrow. Again, I taped that yesterday over doing the radio show. He'll be back on again tomorrow, taking a look at Belmont and a little bit more. And the game plan tomorrow is also going to have, I'm going to catch some other handicappers over on the front side today as well. We'll plug that in for, again, a little abbreviated edition of Racing Across America tomorrow. But same schedule, essentially. 11:40 post time tomorrow. That means we'll kick things off at 8:30 with the handicapper support, 9:30 with Racing Across America for another 14 race day tomorrow. 14 today, again, kicking off at 11:40. That means that the NYRA pregame is about to kick off, so I'll send it there. I do want to alert you, though, a couple of things. Last race yesterday, a horse got stuck under the gate, and it took them a while to get that horse out. Eventually, they popped the horse out, and the horse looked pretty good right afterwards. But Rob Falcone, the trainer, tweeted out yesterday that the horse got away with just a couple of little scratches and seems fine. So that was good news. And I also ran into Bill Gallo in the paddock yesterday from the National Steeplechase Association. And he said, alert people. There was a horse that over one of the jumps took a bad step and went down. That horse eventually got up and ran off. But Bill said the horse is fine and is scheduled to, come back in the steeplechase races when the meet resumes in July. So that was good news as well. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for Racing Across America for this Friday, Acorn Day. Again, back in tomorrow again at 8:30. Enjoy the races this afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been watching Racing Across America. Racing Across America has been brought to you by Pinnell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, Saratoga, just minutes from the track. And the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. When you can't make it to the track, make it to the Clubhouse Racebook.
Scratch number 1 numbered part of the entry, and scratch number 10, Solo Vincere.